My name is Barnett Winston, and at 72 years old, I never imagined my own family dinner would turn into a battlefield. After 40 years building custom homes, my calloused hands still commanded respect, until my son-in-law Gregory decided otherwise. The plate of roast beef crashed to the floor, gravy spattering my shoes. "If you want dinner, lick it off the floor, old man," he sneered, raising his wine glass in mock toast. Before you hear what happened next, take a second to subscribe so you don't miss what I did the following day. I should probably tell you a bit about my daughter Amanda first. She's 48 now, smart as a whip, with her mother's kind eyes and my stubborn chin. 10 years ago, she married Gregory Baldwin, a 52-year-old investment banker with a corner office and a smile that could charm the birds right out of the trees. I remember thinking she'd finally found someone worthy of her after that train wreck of a first marriage. When Amanda first brought Gregory home, I was impressed. He spoke with confidence, knew his wines, had interesting stories about his travels, and seemed genuinely interested in my construction business. He asked thoughtful questions about load-bearing walls and foundation types. We even spent an afternoon in my workshop where I showed him how to properly join wood without using a single nail. He nodded along, complimented my craftsmanship, and I thought to myself, this one's different. Before she met Gregory, Amanda and I were thick as thieves. Every other Saturday, we'd drive out to Lake Chatsworth at dawn with our fishing rods and a cooler of sandwiches. Neither of us cared much if we caught anything. It was our time to talk, to sit in comfortable silence, to be father and daughter without the noise of everyday life. When she bought her first home, a fixer-upper with good bones but terrible plumbing, I spent 6 months of weekends helping her renovate. And when her first husband walked out, leaving nothing but credit card debt and broken promises, I was the shoulder she cried on. 5 years ago, my beautiful Martha lost her battle with lung cancer. 47 years of marriage ended with me holding her hand as she took her final breath. The world seemed to lose its color after that. Food lost its taste. Music lost its melody. I'd wake up reaching for her, only to find cold sheets on her side of the bed. Amanda was my lifeline during those dark months. She'd bring groceries, make sure I was eating, drag me out for walks when all I wanted was to sit in Martha's reading chair and stare at the wall. That's when I started noticing the subtle changes in Gregory. With Martha gone, it was like he no longer needed to maintain the charming facade. He began controlling the family finances with an iron fist, giving Amanda an allowance despite her own successful career as an architectural designer. Whenever I offered financial advice or mentioned investment strategies I'd used successfully, Gregory would smile thinly and say something like, "That might have worked in your day, Barnett, but things are different now." He started excluding me from family decisions. Vacation plans were made without checking if I might want to join. Sunday dinners became less frequent. Amanda would call with excuses about Gregory's work schedule or the kids' activities, but I could hear the tension in her voice. Last year, my arthritis got bad enough that maintaining my 2-story home became a challenge. Steps were my enemy, and the yard work I once enjoyed became a painful chore. After discussing it with Amanda, I decided to sell my house and move into their guest house. It was a beautiful little 1-bedroom cottage on their property, originally built as an artist's studio by the previous owners. Amanda was thrilled to have me closer, Gregory less so, though he put on a good face when others were around. Tensions increased after I moved in. Gregory would make comments just loud enough for me to hear. "Your dad left muddy footprints again. Does he really need to watch TV that loud? Aren't there communities for people his age? Small cuts, designed to make me feel unwelcome without being overtly hostile." Amanda changed, too. My vibrant, opinionated daughter became quieter during our interactions. She'd glance at Gregory before expressing an opinion. She made excuses for his behavior. "He's under so much pressure at work. The market's been tough lately. He didn't mean it that way." I watched my daughter slowly disappear inside her marriage, and it broke my heart. I also began to have concerns about Gregory's business practices. Living in the guest house, I occasionally overheard phone conversations when he worked from home. Phrases like "off the books," "they'll never trace it back," and "just move the funds" temporarily filtered through my open window. I'm no financial expert, but I know the difference between aggressive investing and something that sounds downright illegal. The dinner that changed everything was supposed to be a celebration of Amanda and Gregory's 10th wedding anniversary. Their kids, my grandchildren, Jackson and Lily, 16 and 14, would be there. I spent the day preparing a special gift, thinking maybe this evening would help bridge the growing divide in our family. I had no idea just how wide that divide would become. I arrived early to help prepare dinner. Gregory answered the door, his smile stiffening when he saw me standing there with a small gift box in my hand. "Barnett, we weren't expecting you for another hour. Thought I'd come early and help out," I said, stepping past him into the foyer. "Big day for you and Amanda. 10 years is quite an accomplishment." He made a non-committal sound and checked his Rolex. "Amanda's upstairs getting ready. Kitchen staff has everything under control." Kitchen staff? Last I heard, Amanda was making her grandmother's famous pot roast for a small family dinner. But I just nodded and followed him into the dining room, where 3 people in catering uniforms were setting up an elaborate table for what looked like at least 12 guests. "Bigger celebration than I thought," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "Just a few colleagues joining us. Last-minute thing." Gregory straightened a place card without looking at me. "You can put your gift with the others." He gestured toward a small side table, where several expensively wrapped packages Saturday. I placed my modest gift among them, feeling suddenly self-conscious about the simple blue paper and hand-tied bow. Inside was an antique pocket watch that had belonged to Amanda's grandfather. I'd spent weeks having it restored, the gold case polished to a warm glow, the mechanical movement cleaned and calibrated to keep perfect time again. I thought it would mean something to her, a connection to her past, to our family history. Gregory picked it up, weighing it in his hand. "What's this then?" "Feels like nothing." "It's special," I said, fighting the urge to snatch it back, "for Amanda." He set it down carelessly behind some larger packages. Well, we've got some really nice things from the Mitchell partners. Trip to Aspen, designer handbag. You know, useful stuff. Not worthless old junk." The barb stung, but I let it go. This was their day, and I wouldn't let him provoke me into an argument. Instead, I found Amanda in the kitchen, giving instructions to a professional chef. She lit up when she saw me, hurrying over for a hug. "Dad, you're early. Wanted to see if you needed help, but looks like you've got an army in here." She rolled her eyes. "Gregory's idea. He invited some work people at the last minute, said it was too many for me to cook for." She lowered her voice. "I'm sorry. I know we talked about a family dinner. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. It's your anniversary. Whatever makes you happy." She gave me a look I couldn't quite interpret. "Right. Whatever makes us happy." The guests began arriving at 7. Gregory's colleagues and their spouses, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. Expensive watches, designer dresses, perfect hair. I felt distinctly out of place in my best suit, which suddenly seemed shabby despite being newly dry-cleaned. Jackson and Lily appeared briefly, looking uncomfortable in formal attire, before disappearing upstairs again. When we sat down to dinner, I found myself at the far end of the table, separated from Amanda by 4 people I'd never met. Gregory sat at the head, naturally, with Amanda to his right and his assistant Jacob to his left. I was next to a woman who introduced herself as the wife of one of the junior partners, then promptly turned her back on me to chat with someone more important. Jacob, a thin man with nervous eyes, kept glancing down the table at me when Gregory wasn't looking. During the second course, he excused himself to use the restroom. When he returned, he took a detour, leaning down as he passed my chair. "Your daughter should get her money out." "Soon," he whispered, then continued on before I could respond. Throughout the meal, Gregory became increasingly loud and domineering, his face flushed with expensive wine. He told inside jokes that excluded most of the table, bragged about deals I suspected were less than ethical, and repeatedly interrupted Amanda when she tried to speak. I watched my daughter grow quieter, her smile more forced, her eyes darting to check Gregory's reaction to everything she said. By the time dessert was served, a tension headache pounded behind my eyes. Gregory was now fully drunk, sloshing wine onto the tablecloth as he poured his fourth or fifth glass. One of his colleagues made a toast to the happy couple, and I noticed how the word happy caused Amanda to look down at her untouched cake. Something snapped inside me. I couldn't sit quietly anymore. I stood up, tapping my water glass with my spoon. The table gradually fell silent, all eyes turning to me with varying degrees of curiosity or annoyance. "I'd like to say something about my daughter," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "Amanda has always been the kind of person who—" "Oh God, here we go," Gregory interrupted loudly. "The senile old man can't remember his own name, but he wants to give us a speech." A few uncomfortable laughs rippled around the table. I saw shock in Amanda's eyes, followed by something worse. Resignation. Like this was normal. Expected. As I was saying, I continued, determined to finish. Amanda has always been the kind of person who lights up a room, who makes others feel valued, who sees beauty where others see only function. I started walking toward her, wanting to be closer when I told her how proud her mother would be of the woman she'd become. Gregory stood abruptly, knocking into me as I passed. My plate of half-eaten beef Wellington crashed to the floor, gravy and pastry shattering across the hardwood. "Now look what you've done," he said, his voice thick with wine and malice. "I'm sorry, I'll clean it up," I said, bending down despite my arthritic knees. That's when he said it, loud enough for everyone to hear. "If you want dinner, lick it off the floor, old man." He raised his wine glass in a mock toast, smirking at his own cruelty. The room went completely silent. Someone gasped. Amanda's face drained of color, her hand flying to her mouth. Jackson and Lily stood frozen in the doorway, having come down just in time to witness their father's cruelty. In that moment, time seemed to slow down. I could see each face around the table, shock, embarrassment, and on a few, a shameful hint of amusement. I could hear the antique grandfather clock ticking in the hallway. I could feel every one of my 72 years weighing on my shoulders. But something else happened too. A lifetime of standing my ground on construction sites, of weathering economic downturns and unreasonable clients, of raising a daughter alone after my wife died. All of it crystallized into a single moment of perfect clarity. The gravy from my dinner was soaking into my pant leg as I knelt there on the floor, but I no longer cared about the mess. A strange calm settled over me, pushing away the initial shock and humiliation. I looked around at the faces staring down at me. Gregory's smug satisfaction, Amanda's mortification, the uncomfortable expressions of guests who didn't know where to look. I slowly stood up, my knees protesting but my back straight. With deliberate movements, I brushed off my jacket, straightened my tie, and picked a bit of pastry from my sleeve. The room remained frozen in uncomfortable silence. I made eye contact with Gregory first, holding his gaze until his smirk faltered slightly. Then I looked at each guest in turn, taking my time, making sure they saw me not as a victim, but as a man who had built houses from the ground up with these same hands, who had weathered storms far worse than an insecure bully with too much money and alcohol in his system. Finally, I spoke just 3 words, my voice quiet, but carrying perfectly in the silent room. "I have proof." That was all. 3 simple words. But the effect on Gregory was immediate and startling. His face flushed with wine and triumph seconds before, now drained of color. Confusion flickered in his eyes, followed by the first traces of fear. "What?" he laughed, but it was forced, hollow. "Proof of what, old man? That you can't walk across a room without causing a scene?" I smiled slightly, the kind of smile that gave nothing away. "Proof of what happened on March 14th, and the Hammersmith files, and the offshore accounts Jacob helped you set up. I was fishing, using fragments I'd overheard from Gregory's phone conversations, but judging by the way he flinched and darted a panicked glance at Jacob, I'd hit closer to the mark than I realized." Gregory's laugh now had a brittle edge. I think the excitement's gotten to Barnett. Maybe it's time to call it a night. He turned to the guests, voice overly hearty. Thank you all for coming, but we should probably wrap this up. People began to shift uncomfortably, gathering purses and jackets, mumbling congratulations that no longer sounded sincere. Within minutes, the dining room had emptied of everyone except our immediate family. Jackson and Lily had disappeared upstairs again, sensing the brewing storm. As soon as the front door closed behind the last guest, Gregory rounded on me, his face twisted with rage. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he hissed, getting so close I could smell the wine on his breath. "Embarrassing me in front of my colleagues with your crazy accusations." "I didn't make any accusations, Gregory," I said calmly. "I simply said I have proof." "Interesting how that bothers you so much." "You don't have anything," he spat, but his eyes betrayed uncertainty. "Greg, please," Amanda interjected, her voice trembling. "Dad, what's this about?" "Your husband can explain," I said, not taking my eyes off Gregory. "Though I doubt he'll tell you the truth. He hasn't been truthful about much lately, has he?" Gregory grabbed my arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. "Get out. Go back to your little guest house and stay there until you remember who owns the roof over your head." I pulled my arm away. "Touch me again, and we'll add assault to the list." "List? What list?" Amanda looked between us, confusion and fear battling on her face. "There is no list," Gregory snapped. "Your father's making things up because he can't stand not being the center of attention." "Am I?" I asked quietly. "Then why did Jacob tell me Amanda should get her money out soon?" Gregory's head whipped around to stare at his assistant, who stood frozen by the fireplace. "You said what?" Jacob's Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed. "I didn't. I was just—" "Get out," Gregory ordered, pointing toward the door. "We'll discuss your continued employment tomorrow." After Jacob slunk out, I turned to my daughter. "Amanda, we need to talk. Alone." "She's not going anywhere with you." Gregory stepped between us. "Whatever game you're playing, it stops now. Go back to your cottage, and we'll pretend this never happened." Amanda looked torn, her eyes darting between her husband and me. "Dad, maybe it would be better if we talk tomorrow when everyone's calmer." I could see the fear in her eyes, but also something else. A flicker of the strong, independent woman who existed before Gregory's influence. I decided not to push. Tomorrow would be soon enough. "All right," I nodded, picking up my coat from the back of a chair. "But Amanda, watch closely what happens tomorrow." I left them standing in the dining room and walked through the chilly November air to the guest house. Through the windows of the main house, I could see them arguing. Gregory's hands gesturing wildly, Amanda's arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to hold herself together. An hour later, there was a soft knock at my door. Amanda stood there, eyes red-rimmed, a shawl pulled tight around her shoulders. "Are you okay?" I asked, ushering her inside. "No," she admitted, sinking onto my small sofa. "Gregory says you've lost your mind, that you're making up stories because you resent his success." She looked up at me, searching my face. "Dad, what did you mean about having proof?" "Proof of what?" I sat beside her, taking her cold hands in mine. "I think you know, deep down, the late-night phone calls, the nervous investors showing up at the house, the way he won't let you see the financial statements anymore." A tear slid down her cheek. "He says it's complicated, that I wouldn't understand. You're an architectural designer who runs complex projects worth millions. You understand plenty." I squeezed her hands. "Amanda, has he put your name on any business documents? Asked you to sign things without explaining them?" She nodded slowly, more tears falling. "He said it was just routine, that everyone in finance does it this way." "They don't," I said gently. "And I meant what I said about having proof. But I can't tell you more right now. Just watch what happens tomorrow, and be ready." "Ready for what?" Fear crept into her voice. "For the truth," I said. "And for making some difficult decisions." She left shortly after, promising to call me in the morning. I didn't sleep much that night, going over and over everything I'd learned about Gregory's business dealings, piecing together fragments of conversations and behaviors that had troubled me for months. By dawn, I knew exactly what needed to be done. I was up before the sun, my old carpenter's habit never having left me despite retirement. Sleep had come in fitful bursts, leaving me tired but wired with adrenaline. Today would change everything, one way or another. I called Jacob at 6:30. He answered on the first ring, sounding like he hadn't slept either. "Mr. Winston, is that you?" "It's me, Jacob. We need to talk. In person, not over the phone. Can you meet me at Maggie's Diner in 30 minutes? There was a pause, then a shaky exhale. He'll fire me if he finds out. He's going to fire you anyway after last night. But I might be able to help you, if you help me first. Another pause. Okay. 30 minutes. Maggie's was nearly empty at that hour. Just a few truckers at the counter, and an elderly couple in a corner booth. Jacob arrived looking pale and fidgety, his tie askew. I had my phone recording in my pocket. Not entirely legal, perhaps, but necessary. "Coffee?" I asked as he slid into the booth opposite me. He nodded, his hands shaking slightly. As he reached for the mug, the waitress sat down. "Let's not waste time," I said once she walked away. "Tell me exactly what Gregory's been doing." Jacob glanced around nervously, then leaned forward. It started small, fudging some numbers on quarterly reports, making returns look better than they were. But then, investors wanted their money, and there wasn't enough. Because he was skimming, I guessed. Jacob nodded miserably. Personal accounts in the Caymans, using client funds for his own investments. When those tanked, he started moving money around to cover the holes, but it's like a shell game. Eventually, someone's going to notice there aren't enough shells. And Amanda's name is on some of these documents? As a secondary signatory, yes. He said it was for tax purposes, but really, it was to spread the liability. I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "How bad is it, Jacob?" "Bad. 11 million bad. Maybe more. The SEC has already started asking questions. That's why I told your daughter to get her money out. The whole thing could collapse any day." "Do you have documentation?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from his guilty expression. "Some. I've been keeping copies as insurance." He pulled a flash drive from his pocket, sliding it across the table. "Everything's here. Account numbers, transfer dates, client names. I was too scared to do anything with it, but maybe you can." I pocketed the drive. "This is a start. Now I need you to come with me to see someone." "Who?" "An old friend at the district attorney's office." His eyes widened. "I can't do that. They'll arrest me too." "Not if you're cooperating. Trust me, Jacob. This is your best way out." 2 hours later, we sat in Thomas Jackson's office. I'd known Thomas for 30 years, since he was a rookie prosecutor, and I was doing expert testimony on construction fraud cases. Now his hair was silver and his waistline expanded, but his sharp legal mind hadn't dulled a bit. "This is serious stuff, Barnett," he said, flipping through the printouts of Jacob's files. "Securities fraud, wire fraud, misappropriation of client funds. Your son-in-law could be looking at 15 to 20 years if even half of this is accurate." "It's accurate," Jacob said quietly. "I can testify to all of it." Thomas studied him. "And what do you want in exchange?" "Immunity," I answered for him. "He's a whistleblower with no prior record who's cooperating fully." Thomas grunted. "I'll see what I can do. No promises, but it helps that he came forward voluntarily." He turned back to me. "What about your daughter? Her name's on some of these documents." "She was manipulated," I said firmly. "She had no knowledge of the fraud." "We'll need to prove that," Thomas warned. "But if what you're saying about Gregory's controlling behavior is true, it supports that narrative." After leaving Thomas's office, I spent the next several hours making calls to contacts I'd kept from my working days. A former client, who was one of Gregory's investors, confirmed he'd been trying unsuccessfully to withdraw funds for months. My banker friend reviewed the documents and confirmed they showed clear evidence of a Ponzi scheme. An old poker buddy who now worked for the SEC told me they'd had Gregory's firm on their radar for months. By mid-afternoon, I had a thick file of evidence, statements, and supporting documentation. I called Franklin Davis, my attorney for the last 30 years, and asked him to meet me at Gregory's office the next morning. Then I made one last attempt to speak with Amanda. She met me in the garden between the main house and my cottage, looking exhausted and wary. "Gregory says I shouldn't talk to you," she said without preamble. "He says you're trying to cause trouble because you're jealous of his success and bitter about living in the guest house." "Do you believe that?" I asked. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "I don't know what to believe anymore. 10 years, Dad. 10 years I've built a life with him. The kids, the house, everything. I can't just throw that away because of some accusation, even if the accusation is true." "Is it?" she challenged. "Or are you just upset about last night? Because if that's what this is about, Gregory says he's sorry. He'd had too much to drink. The pressure at work has been intense." "Amanda," I interrupted gently, "when did you stop trusting your own judgment? When did his word become more valuable than your own observations? The Gregory you're defending isn't the man you married. You know that. You don't understand how complicated it is," she said, echoing Gregory's words. "His business, our finances. I understand more than you think," I said. "And tomorrow you will too. Just promise me you'll keep an open mind when the time comes." She shook her head, tears welling. "I can't do this right now. I need to get back before he wonders where I've gone." As she walked away, I noticed for the first time how her shoulders hunched slightly, how she made herself smaller. My vibrant, confident daughter had been slowly erased, replaced by someone afraid of her own shadow. It strengthened my resolve for what needed to happen next. Franklin met me outside Gregory's office building at 9 the next morning. Despite being in his 70s like me, he still cut an impressive figure in his tailored suit and wire-rimmed glasses. The leather briefcase he carried contained copies of everything I'd gathered, organized and annotated with his legal expertise. "You're sure about this?" he asked, as we rode the elevator to the 14th floor. "Once we start, there's no going back." "I'm sure," I said. He crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. The receptionist tried to stop us, saying Mr. Baldwin was in a meeting, but Franklin simply handed her his business card. "Tell him Franklin Davis and Barnett Winston are here on an urgent legal matter. We'll wait exactly 3 minutes before we contact the authorities." Her eyes widened at authorities, and she hurried down the hallway. Less than a minute later, she returned looking flustered. "Mr. Baldwin says to come in." Gregory was seated at the head of a conference table with 3 well-dressed men. His face darkened when he saw me. "Gentlemen," he said to his clients, "we'll need to reschedule. Something unexpected has come up." After they filed out, giving Franklin and me curious glances, Gregory closed the door and turned on us. "What the hell do you think you're doing, barging in here? I could have you arrested for harassment." "I wouldn't throw around legal threats if I were you," Franklin said mildly, setting his briefcase on the table. Gregory's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" "Franklin Davis, attorney at law. I represent Mr. Winston." Gregory laughed incredulously. "You hired a lawyer? For what?" I stepped forward, placing the file I'd compiled on the conference table. "To make sure everything is handled properly when I turn this over to the SEC, the district attorney, and your investors." "Turn what over?" Gregory's voice had a dangerous edge now. "Everything," I said simply. "The fraudulent investment reports, the misappropriated client funds, the shell companies, the offshore accounts." Jacob was quite thorough in his documentation. Gregory's face contorted with rage. "That little weasel. I'll destroy him." "No, you won't," Franklin interjected. "Mr. Ellis has already provided a sworn statement to the district attorney. Any action against him would constitute witness tampering, which would only add to your considerable legal troubles." Gregory's confidence wavered visibly, but he rallied quickly. "This is ridiculous. I don't know what stories Jacob told you, but I run a legitimate business. And you," he jabbed a finger at me, "you're just a bitter old man looking for revenge because I embarrassed you at dinner. Is that what you think this is about? A dinner?" I shook my head. Gregory, I've watched you manipulate and control my daughter for years. I've seen her spirit diminish, her confidence erode. Last night wasn't an isolated incident. It was just the first time you did it publicly, where I couldn't pretend not to see. Get out, he spat. Get out before I call security and have you thrown out. And don't think you'll be welcome back at my house. Your little guest house stay is over. You're not listening, I said calmly. We have proof of everything. Documented, verified proof. I began laying out papers on the table methodically. Bank statements, transfer records, client complaints, SEC inquiries. With each document, Gregory's face grew paler. This is nothing, he insisted. But his voice lacked conviction. Circumstantial at best. Franklin adjusted his glasses. Mr. Baldwin, I've been practicing securities law for 40 years. This evidence would be more than sufficient for the SEC to freeze all your assets while they conduct a full investigation. During that time, your clients would likely file civil suits, which, based on this documentation, they would win. The criminal charges would follow, carrying potential sentences of 15 to 20 years in federal prison. Gregory stared at the papers, then at us. The bluster was gone, replaced by the first glimmers of genuine fear. What do you want? Money? Is that it? Name your price to make this go away. It doesn't work that way, I said. You can't buy your way out of this. Everyone has a price, he insisted, growing desperate. 100,000? 200? Just tell me what you want. What I want, I said, leaning forward, is for you to stop hurting my daughter. Stop stealing from your clients. Stop thinking you can treat people like they're beneath you. Fine words, he sneered, some of his arrogance returning. But what are you actually going to do? Turn me in? Amanda's name is on those documents too. She'll go down with me. No, she won't. Not with Jacob's testimony about how you manipulated her. It'll still ruin her life, Gregory countered. The scandal, the legal fees, the public humiliation. Is that what you want for your precious daughter? It was a fair point, and one that had kept me awake the previous night. I glanced at Franklin, who nodded slightly. We're prepared to offer an alternative, Franklin said, pulling a document from his briefcase. Resignation from your firm, effective immediately. Full cooperation with a quiet audit. Entry into a residential treatment program for alcoholism. Family counseling. And most importantly, full financial transparency with your wife going forward. Gregory laughed bitterly. And why would I agree to any of that? Because it's your only chance to avoid prison, I said simply. You're bluffing, he said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. You wouldn't do this to Amanda. Try me, I said, pulling out my phone. One call to Thomas Jackson at the DA's office, and the machinery of justice starts turning. Your choice, Gregory. This is extortion, he sputtered. No, Franklin corrected. It's an opportunity to make amends before the consequences become irreversible. I suggest you take it. Gregory stared at us, calculation visible in his eyes. I need to think about it. Talk to my own lawyer. You have 1 hour, I said, standing up. Then we go to the authorities. You can't dictate terms to me, he said. But the words sounded hollow. 1 hour, I repeated, gathering my papers. We'll be waiting in the lobby. 45 minutes later, Gregory called down to the lobby. Send them back up, he told the receptionist. When we returned to his office, he was pacing, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it repeatedly. You're bluffing, he said immediately. You won't do this. I sighed, pulling out my phone. Let's find out. I dialed Thomas's number, putting it on speaker. Jackson, came the gruff answer. Thomas, it's Barnett. About that matter we discussed yesterday. We're ready to proceed with the formal complaint. Gregory lunged across the desk, ending the call. Wait! That's witness tampering and destruction of property, Franklin noted mildly, retrieving my phone from the floor. Should I add it to the list? Give me the papers, Gregory said through gritted teeth. The resignation letter, whatever. Just give them to me. Franklin slid the documents across the table. Gregory scanned them, his jaw tightening. "This is humiliating. You expect me to just walk away from my firm? Enter rehab like some junkie? I expect you to face consequences for your actions," I said. "These are far lighter consequences than you deserve." The phone on Gregory's desk rang. He ignored it. It rang again, insistently. Finally, he snatched it up. "What?" His face changed. "Send her up." A minute later, the door opened, and Amanda walked in. She looked between the three of us, confusion evident on her face. "What's going on?" "The receptionist said you were in some kind of meeting with Dad and a lawyer." Gregory attempted a reassuring smile. "It's nothing, honey. Just a misunderstanding about some business matters." "Business matters that required my father and a lawyer to come to your office?" She turned to me. "Dad, what is this?" I took a deep breath. "It's what I tried to tell you yesterday. Gregory's firm is under investigation. There are serious financial irregularities, and he's been using your name on documents without fully explaining what you were signing." "That's not true," Gregory interjected quickly. "Amanda knows exactly what she signed." "Tell them, honey." Amanda looked uncertain. "I signed the papers you give me. But you know I don't really understand all the financial details." "Exactly." Gregory seized on this. "You trust me to handle those things. That's how our marriage works." "Is this what you meant by having proof?" Amanda asked me, ignoring Gregory. I nodded. "Jacob provided documentation of everything. Gregory has been misusing client funds, creating fake returns and putting your name on fraudulent documents." "He's lying," Gregory insisted. "Jacob's lying too. They're trying to ruin us because they're jealous." Amanda's eyes hardened slightly. "Stop it, Gregory. Stop telling me what other people think and feel. For once, just answer directly. Is what they're saying true?" "It's complicated," he hedged. "The investment world has certain practices that look questionable to outsiders, but are perfectly standard in the industry." "Fraud is not a standard industry practice," Franklin noted. Gregory shot him a venomous look. "Nobody asked you." "Is it true?" Amanda repeated, her voice stronger now. "Parts of it," Gregory finally admitted. "But it's not as bad as they're making it sound. I made some mistakes, took some shortcuts. I was trying to maintain our lifestyle, give you everything you deserve. By breaking the law? By putting my name on documents that could send me to prison?" Her voice rose. "How is that giving me what I deserve?" "You were never in any real danger," he insisted. "I would have protected you, like you protected our clients, our friends who trusted you with their life savings." She turned to me. "How bad is it, Dad?" $11 million bad, I said gently. "Maybe more." She sank into a chair, her face ashen. "All those people, in their money." "I can fix it," Gregory said desperately. "I just need time to move some investments around, sell some assets." "He can't fix it," Franklin interjected. "The money is gone, spent on your lifestyle, lost in bad investments, or hidden in accounts we haven't yet discovered." "You turned my father against me," Gregory rounded on me, voice rising. "You never gave me a chance. You always thought I wasn't good enough for your precious daughter." "That's not true," I said. "I thought you were exactly what Amanda needed. I was wrong." "Gregory." Amanda's voice cut through the tension. "Did you put my name on fraudulent documents?" He stared at her, calculation visible in his eyes, then slumped slightly. "Yes." "Did you lie to our clients about their returns?" A longer pause. "Yes." "Did you take their money for personal use?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Amanda stood up, suddenly looking taller, stronger. "Then sign those papers. Do whatever they're asking. Because if you don't, I'll be the first one to testify against you." "You wouldn't," he breathed, shocked. "After 10 years, you wouldn't turn on me like that." 10 years, she repeated. 10 years of being told I wouldn't understand the finances. 10 years of being given an allowance from my own money. 10 years of watching you slowly isolate me from my father, my friends, even my own opinions. She straightened her shoulders. "Sign the papers, Gregory. It's over." For one tense moment, I thought he might lunge at her, his fists clenched, his face contorted with rage. Then, like air from a punctured balloon, the fight seemed to leave him. He grabbed a pen and scrawled his signature across the documents. "There," he spat. "Satisfied? You've ruined everything." "No, Gregory," Amanda said quietly. "You did that, all on your own." As we prepared to leave, the outer office had filled with curious employees, drawn by the raised voices. They watched in stunned silence as Gregory emptied his desk, throwing personal items into a box with jerky, angry movements. His assistant's eyes widened at the resignation letter Franklin handed to the firm's compliance officer. Amanda walked out with her head high, flanked by Franklin and me. In the elevator, she finally broke down, leaning against me as the sobs came. I held my daughter, feeling her body shake with grief and relief in equal measure. "It's over," I murmured into her hair. "It's going to be okay." "How can it ever be okay?" she asked, her voice muffled against my shoulder. "Everything we had was built on lies." "Not everything," I said. "You and the kids, that's real. Your career, your talents, that's real. The rest can be rebuilt, honestly this time." When the elevator doors opened to the lobby, she straightened up, wiping her eyes. "One step at a time," she said, more to herself than to us. "One step at a time." The weeks following Gregory's resignation were some of the most difficult our family had ever faced. The firm launched an internal investigation, freezing most of the family's assets in the process. Amanda had to explain to Jackson and Lily that their father had done something wrong and needed help, without destroying their relationship with him completely. She filed for legal separation, not yet ready for divorce but needing clear boundaries. Gregory entered a residential treatment facility for alcoholism as agreed. Whether he truly wanted help or was just fulfilling the terms of our agreement remained to be seen. The facility had strict limits on communication, which gave Amanda space to begin sorting through the financial wreckage without his manipulation. I spent long hours with Amanda, helping her understand exactly what Gregory had done and what it meant for her future. With Franklin's help, we established that she had signed documents under false pretenses, believing Gregory's assurances that they were routine paperwork. Jacob's testimony supported this, describing how Gregory would present papers for her signature during dinner or as she was rushing out the door, never giving her time to read them properly. "I feel so stupid," she confessed one evening as we sat in her kitchen reviewing financial statements. "How did I not see what was happening?" "It wasn't stupidity," I said. "It was trust. You trusted your husband, as you should have been able to. The failure was his, not yours." Slowly, Amanda began to reclaim her independence. She opened new bank accounts in her name only. She increased her hours at the architectural firm where she worked, taking on more responsibility and rebuilding her professional confidence. She started making decisions without seeking approval or bracing for criticism. My relationship with my grandchildren deepened during this time. Jackson, at 16, was old enough to understand more of what had happened. One Saturday, he showed up at my cottage with a broken model airplane. "Mom said you're good at fixing things," he said, holding out the shattered pieces. It was a simple thing, repairing the model, but it opened a door. As we worked, he started talking about his father. "He always made me feel like I wasn't good enough," Jackson admitted, carefully holding a wing in place while the glue dried. "Not athletic enough, not smart enough in the right ways. Nothing I did was ever just acceptable." "Your father has his own demons," I said carefully. "That doesn't make his behavior right, but it might help you understand it isn't about you. It never was." "Did he really steal money from people?" I considered how to answer. "He made choices that hurt people who trusted him. Now he's facing consequences for those choices." "Is that why he made Mom cry all the time? Because of the money stuff?" I looked at my grandson, seeing the pain behind the question. "Your mom cried because your dad forgot how to be kind. That happens sometimes in marriages. People forget that love should make you both better, not tear one person down." Over the following months, I taught Jackson basic carpentry in my small workshop. There was something healing in showing him how to measure twice and cut once, how to sand with the grain, how to join pieces so they would hold strong for decades. Simple, honest work with tangible results. So different from the house of cards Gregory had built. Lily, at 14, took longer to come around. She had been Daddy's little girl, showered with gifts and attention. The separation left her angry and confused. She blamed Amanda at first, then me, then Gregory himself. I gave her space, understanding that her world had been upended. 3 months after Gregory entered treatment, Lily showed up at my door in tears. "Can I stay here tonight?" she asked, clutching a backpack. "Mom and Jackson are fighting about Dad again, and I just can't listen anymore." "Of course," I said, ushering her in. We made hot chocolate and sat on the porch swing, watching fireflies rise from the lawn. Eventually, she spoke. "Did you know? Before all this happened, did you know Dad was bad?" I chose my words carefully. "I knew he wasn't treating your mom with respect. I knew something was wrong with his business. But no, I didn't know the extent of it. He called me yesterday," she said, staring into her mug. "From the treatment center. He said when he comes home, things will be different. Better. Do you think that's true?" "I think people can change if they truly want to," I said. "But it takes more than words. It takes consistent actions over time. Mom says we might have to sell the house." "That's possible. Would that be so terrible?" She considered this. "I guess not. It's just a house, right? As long as we're together." "Exactly," I said, putting an arm around her shoulders. "The people matter, not the things." Amanda did indeed sell the house, moving into a more modest but comfortable home closer to her office. I found a small apartment nearby, giving her space to establish her new life while staying close enough to help with the kids. Gregory completed his 90-day treatment program and moved into a studio apartment, beginning the long process of rebuilding trust with supervised visitation. 6 months after that fateful dinner, we sat around Amanda's new dining table. Amanda, the kids, Gregory, and me. It was Gregory's first meal with all of us since his return. The tension was palpable, but there was also a fragile hope. Gregory had changed physically. The expensive suits replaced by simple khakis and a button-down shirt, the designer watch gone from his wrist. He'd lost weight, and there was a humility in his posture that had never been there before. "I wanted to thank you all for giving me this chance," he said when we'd finished eating. "I know I don't deserve it." "No, you don't," Amanda agreed, her voice firm but not unkind. "But we're giving it to you anyway, for the kids' sake. And because at one point we built something good together." "Barnett," Gregory turned to me, visibly struggling with what came next. "I owe you the biggest apology. What I did at that dinner, there's no excuse. And you could have sent me to prison. But you gave me a chance to make amends instead. I don't know if I can ever repay that." "It's not about repayment," I said. "It's about learning and growing. Are you doing that?" "Trying," he said. "Every day." I nodded, accepting this. Time would tell if his change was genuine or just another performance. After dinner, I helped Amanda wash dishes while the kids showed Gregory their new rooms. "Do you think he's sincere?" she asked quietly. "I think he wants to be," I replied. "But recovery isn't linear. There will be setbacks." "I'm not taking him back," she said firmly. "Not romantically. That's over. That's your decision to make, no one else's." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. "That's what I'm learning. My decisions are mine. My life is mine." "It always was," I said, squeezing her shoulder. "You just forgot for a while." Later that night, back in my apartment, I reflected on everything that had happened since that plate crashed to the floor. The pain, the revelations, the slow, difficult healing. I thought about respect, how it must be earned and maintained, not demanded or taken for granted. I thought about courage, how it sometimes looks like standing up in front of others, and sometimes looks like admitting you were wrong. At 72, I'd learned that age doesn't automatically confer wisdom or guarantee respect. Sometimes you have to stand your ground, even when your knees ache and your heart is breaking. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is not to dominate others, but to maintain your dignity while protecting those you love. I may have lost some things along the way, a comfortable guest house, the illusion of a perfect family, but I gained something more valuable: my daughter's freedom, my grandchildren's future, and the knowledge that when it mattered most, I found the courage to speak those three simple words: I have proof. Have you ever had to stand up to someone who disrespected you or a loved one? What gave you the strength to do it? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more from this old carpenter who's learned a thing or two about building not just houses, but lives worth living. Thank you for listening. And remember, true strength isn't about power over others, but about having the courage to protect what matters most.